It's time for the RMAC Radio Show, featuring all the latest information from around the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. The RMAC is a proud member of NCAA Division II. Now, here's your host, Eric Damage.
Welcome to the RMAC Radio Show. Big show planned for you today. We have our first on-camera, in-studio guest, just a year of first so far on the RMAC Radio Show. We're going to have the Commissioner J.R. Smith on the show in just a few minutes. We're also going to have Tanya Javi of the Red Hot Metro State Roadrunner women's basketball team, currently undefeated, and they got a big matchup against Fort Lewis coming up this weekend. But we're going to start off with some men's basketball information. Fort Lewis, this past weekend, they played Colorado Christian and Colorado Mines in men's hoops. Fort Lewis coming out on top 86-83, so they moved to 9-2 in the RMAC. They're 13-2 overall. Mines falls to 8-3, so Fort Lewis now in sole possession of second place in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, only trailing Metro State, and they will be playing this Friday at Fort Lewis. That's a 7:30 tip-off for the men's game. RMAC/Baden Offensive Player of the Week goes to David Kenyinda of Fort Lewis. He's a senior out of Albuquerque. Came off the bench in both games, averaged over 20 points per game, and that 25 points against CCU on 8 of 11 shooting. Also had more than 20 points against Colorado Mines. And then Dale Minschwaner of Colorado Mines is our RMAC/Baden Defensive Player of the Week. He averaged 6 defensive rebounds and 3.5 blocks as CSM went 1-1 in their 2 games last week. They defeated Adams State before losing to Fort Lewis 86-83. Well, we got our big guest here in the studio. It'd be the Commissioner of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, J.R. Smith. J.R., how do you like our new studio?
Oh, I like it a lot. It's could use some drapes, I suppose. But,
maybe that'll be in the budget next year.
Yeah, well, you got to walk before you run. So.
Well, you're just back. We like to have you on the show a couple times a year. One of them is always after the NCAA Convention.
Sure.
You just returned. It was in San Antonio last week. Always there's some voting going on by the Division II constituency. Any major rules passed this past week?
Well, this was phase 2 of the Life in the Balance proposals that we started last year, which kind of reduced some playing dates for people and their practice hours and stuff like that. And we did pass 3 pieces of legislation that will reduce some of the commitment that some of our student athletes have to some of our winter and spring sports. So, yeah, but not nearly as controversial, I think, as last year's legislation. And as it usually is at the NCAA Convention, there's a lot of technical things that get adjusted that that we vote on, and then there are a few usually big things. But this year was pretty quiet. So.
Now, the weather here in Colorado Springs was pretty good last week, but around the country, not so good in terms of air travel. But I guess that didn't necessarily affect your trip down there, but it still wasn't smooth sailing down to San Antonio.
Oh, no, we had a little issues going down and coming back with planes and maintenance issues. So that was really the big issue. So I don't know if that has anything to do with the weather. But you know what? Whenever you're out traveling around in the country, and you're going to have some things from time to time. And I think certainly since 9/11, I've learned that you just got to take your time and pace yourself, because you just never know what's going to happen, and you got to take things as they roll. So we were fine. Danielle and I figured out, read through a few good books, and got some stuff ready on our computers. So it was fine. So.
Danielle being Danielle Valerio, who works in our office. She's in charge of compliance for the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. And that's part of going down there, too. I know they have some compliance meetings with the NCAA. And then you also had to get down there for the conference commissioners meetings, which, as I understand, that was quite a lengthy conference.
Yeah, we always have a commissioners meetings in conjunction with the convention, and typically we talk a little bit about what legislation is being proposed, and then they sort of parade different people in front of us. Like we talked with the folks from CASIDA a little bit about some proposals they have to simplify score reporting, things like that. Probably the most interesting discussion that we had was with Greg Shaheen, who is the new Vice President of Championships for the NCAA, and I think he's very excited about trying to find some ways to streamline some issues in the NCAA championships, and I think that'll be good and positive. And I think he's one of those people that likes to think outside the box. So I think he's doing a little of that now, and it'll have some impact on us as we go along. But I certainly think it'll be positive. So.
Once again, we're talking with J.R. Smith, the commissioner of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. Now, in addition to doing some of these kind of national type of meetings, it's also a chance to visit with the RMAC schools. About 3 or 4 times a year, the RMAC schools get together and have meetings, and you always have one at the NCAA Convention. Obviously, one of the big topics going on in the RMAC ever since Nebraska Kearney announced this fall that they would not be coming back after the 2012 season. Who is going to be replacing him? How are we going to replace him? Has the ball moved forward a little bit, maybe in that direction, or what's the plan right now in terms of adding schools or replacing Nebraska Kearney?
Well, the convention is another good place where we have presidents and athletic directors there from all the institutions in the NCAA, and so it's a good opportunity for us to kind of have some dialogue with people that we would normally see, and then of course we have our conference meetings where we did have quite a discussion about where we should move forward next. And it's a difficult thing, and as it was when we replaced Fort Hays. You need to find the right balance of institutions and impact on the institutions that we currently have. And I think the positive thing about it all is that we're all working together to try to find the best solution that'll make the RMAC continue to be strong Division II conference. But I think everybody's got some different ideas about that, and we kind of prepped our way in this meeting to a meeting that we have February 3rd with our presidents in Golden that I think will probably cap off our discussion about that, and we'll hopefully move forward with some recommendations on new membership. So.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. J.R. Smith, once again, the commissioner of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, only about a month and a half away from the RMAC shootout in Pueblo, and I believe, I was counting it up, this is our 6th year in Pueblo, which is about as long as we've had the shootout in one place. When you look back over the years, it was in Denver, was at the World Arena for a little while. Now the 6th year coming up, and it looks like we should have some pretty good matchups once again this year. You got Fort Lewis nationally ranked women's basketball, Metro nationally ranked. Of course, you never know what happens once we get in the tournament setting, but once again, it should be a great event down in Pueblo.
Well, it's kind of interesting this year. We went to a 22-game schedule in our regular season, and I think I was thinking about this morning when I looked at the press releases and the standings, and we're halfway there. It seems like we've been playing conference basketball forever. We're halfway through the season, and so a lot can change, a lot can happen. People can get injured, streaks, and all of those other things happen. But in my opinion, right now, it looks to me like in both the men's and the women's, we got a fantastic race coming up, and I think we're going to have maybe the best basketball tournament season that we've ever had in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. There's a lot of teams that are all pretty comparable, and as we see the rest of the conference schedule play out this year, I think you're going to see it tighten up even more. And once we get to the tournament, who knows what's going to happen. And I think that makes for an exciting tournament. I'm looking forward to having folks down in Pueblo that first week in March. And
then we got wrestling coming up. I guess before that, we got swimming and diving. That'll be in Grand Junction here in the middle of February, and that's the first time Grand Junction, Mesa State will get a chance to host and kind of show off their brand new facility there. Yeah, very excited about the new building on the Mesa State campus, and it's a good opportunity. In swimming, we have sort of a hybrid membership scenario because we have some schools that aren't necessarily full-time members of our schools that are involved with it. But I'm certain that Mesa has put together just a spectacular program there, and everyone will have a first-class championship there. And I know the building. I've walked through it and saw what potential it has, and it's going to be hopefully a fast pool and a great opportunity for student athletes to have a wonderful championship experience. So we're excited about it. In wrestling, we got San Francisco is going to be hosting the RMACs, but then after that, and track and field is going to be in Kearney. But National Indoor is going to be in Albuquerque again, hosted by Adams. Wrestling is going to be in Kearney the same weekend, hosted by Kearney. And then Incarnate Word is actually going to be hosting swimming and diving. So RMAC all the way around going to be hosting those winter sports championships. Maybe we should try to have a festival
of our own. That would be hosted by the RMAC. That's not a bad idea. It's exciting to see our schools step up and get involved in those kind of things, and it is really an institutional decision. Adams State has worked very diligently on that indoor track thing. They hosted last year at Albuquerque, and that's a tough thing. It's tough enough just to do it in your own campus, but then to have to take it out and travel 4 or 5 hours south of where you're at, and then try to make something like that happen. That's a huge deal, and I commend the staff and folks and coaches at Adams State for all the effort that they put into what was a first-class scenario last year, and I'm sure it will be this year. Kearney's hosted wrestling before as a national championship. It was one of the best attended wrestling championships in the country, so or in the history of Division II wrestling. So I have no doubt Kearney will do a fine job there, and Incarnate Word is, it's another one of our scenarios where we have a conference school that's going to host a national championship in a world-class facility. That's cool. It's nice to be in that position, and hopefully it also means that some of our schools will be really highly competitive, maybe even knock off a few of those champions. So.
Well, that is J.R. Smith, the commissioner of the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. We're going to give you a little bit more of an update on men's basketball, and for that, let's head over to Garrett Ratonia at the RMAC Sports Desk.
The race to get into the RMAC men's basketball tournament is tightening up as the games wind down. Taking a look at the standings, Metro State maintains their hold of the top spot at 10-1 in the conference and 13-2 overall. The Roadrunners picked up 2 home wins against CSU Pueblo and UCCS. Coming in at 9-2 and 13-2 overall are the Skyhawks of Fort Lewis. FLC hit the road this past weekend and notched victories against CCU and Colorado Mines. Fort Lewis and Metro State will meet January 15th in Durango in a battle for first. Colorado Mines and Adams State are tied for third with 8-3 RMAC records. The Ore Diggers grabbed the victory against the Grizzlies 77-69 before losing to Fort Lewis. ASC, now 11-3 overall, defeated CCU after losing to Mines. The Cowboys of New Mexico Highlands are next at 8-4 in the RMAC and 12-4 overall. Highlands enjoyed some home cooking this past weekend with victories over Chadron State and Nebraska Kearney. Sitting at 7-4 in the conference are the Mesa State Mavericks. Mesa, 11-4 overall, was upset at home in a 68-55 loss to Western State. Western New Mexico finds themselves in 7th with a 7-5 conference mark. The Mustangs, 7-12 overall, followed suit with Highlands by taking down UNK and Chadron State. CSU Pueblo and Nebraska Kearney are tied for 8th with 4-7 RMAC records. The T-Wolves dropped the contest to Metro before beating Regis. UNK was without top scorer Max Freilich and co-head coach Tom Kropp, who were hit hard by the flu bug. The Lopers traveled down to New Mexico and dropped both contests to the New Mexico schools. 3 teams are tangled up with 3-8 conference records. Those include Chadron State, Colorado Christian, and Western State. The Eagles, 5-10 overall, dropped 2 contests to Highlands and Western New Mexico. The Cougars, 4-10 overall, lost games to ASC and Fort Lewis, and the Mountaineers, 4-12 overall, won their lone conference game against Mesa State. Rounding out the standings are Regis and UCCS tied at 2-9 in the RMAC. The Rangers, 5-10 overall, defeated UCCS by 1 before dropping to CSU Pueblo, and the Mountain Lions, 4-11 overall, lost that 1-point game as well as another contest to Metro State. I'm Garrett Ratonia, and this has been your RMAC Men's Basketball Update.
Thank you, Garrett. When we come back, we're going to talk women's basketball with head Metro State women's coach Tanya Have. You're watching and listening to the RMAC Radio Show.